You take shots at your own fans. Let's cover the obvious first, okay? He doesn't even know the territory that he represents. You cannot have a basement in Florida. That's the first part of this, okay? The old sitting in his mother's basement, which is the most tired of cliches, generalizations, etc. in sports or beyond, doesn't apply in Florida. There's too much water. It is a swamp. Your stadium is literally called the Swamp, and you cannot put basements underneath them. So this does not apply either literally or figuratively. But beyond that, and I've said this a million times, and I will say it a million more, those fans you're criticizing, their passion is the reason you have that job. Their passion is the reason you get paid as much money as you get paid. Those fans who save up their money, not the ones who sit in the corporate suites, not the ones who make huge donations to the university, they're not the ones criticizing you on Twitter. The ones who are criticizing you on social media are the ones who save up their money to travel to one game a year, who give their kids for Christmas, Florida jerseys, all that kind of stuff. They're people who have been there long before you got there, and they're going to be there long after you're gone. For you, this is a job, and I get it. It's important, and I get criticism stinks, but it comes with the territory. And if you're going to fire back on your own fans, you have lost. It is over. Billy Napier is already out of Florida. It is just a question of when they decide to make it official. You do not win your fans back after this. No coach ever goes after the fans and gets it back again. To me, this is the cardinal sin. I know a little bit about what criticism is like. Now, I will be the first to acknowledge the amount of criticism that a college football coach in the SEC must receive, hear, live with, deal with. It is 10 trillion times what I've ever heard on my worst day. But the one thing I do know for sure is that my description and his, my job description and his, is you put your work on display for the world, and the world is going to judge it. And if you can't handle that, you're in the wrong line of work, whether you're a broadcaster, a football coach, or anything else. That's the description. That's the job. This is the business we have chosen. I'm going to put my work out there. And no matter how well you think you do it, there are going to be people who don't like it. Again, I'm not comparing myself to him in any infinitesimal way. If you added up all the criticism I've received in my 30-year career, it would be less than he's probably heard since the game on Saturday. But that doesn't matter. That's the one place you can't go. Because by saying what you said, you just did the opposite of what you're telling your players to do. You're telling your players, we need to be focused on the things that matter, the X's and O's, getting it right, getting our blocking schemes together, whatever it is that failed you in that game. And obviously that's right. But you don't say it. You don't say it. You don't ever say it. So to me, he has committed the cardinal sin of coaching at any level, but particularly on the college level in that part of the country. So I don't know how he comes back from here. Bubba and Cam, let's get you involved in the program. Cam, what do you think of that?
Do you know how long Florida Gators have been playing football?
Well, I mean, I'm going to say it's probably something in the neighborhood of 100 years.
Yeah, 1906, and Billy Napier got there in November of 2021. So I just think that crystallizes that this guy just got there, and you always have this story about how you talked to Herm Edwards. You know, you remember when you were doing this, I was rooting for the Jets. Right. That's what it's like. These fandoms go back generations and generations and generations. And again, I get it because it's got to be so annoying when people who do not know what they're talking about a lot of times online, and even if you run into them in person, are criticizing you for how to run your football team. But when you have an 11-15 record at an SEC program that is used to championships and winning, and you can't do anything and get smashed by an in-state rival, you're going to have to deal with the criticism that comes from the people that don't have basements in Florida. So I think, like you said, it comes with the territory, and I get the frustration, but you can't lash out that way. It was probably just a weak moment where he's trying to make a wry joke at a press conference, but it comes off terrible, and it is not going to engender any favoritism that he already didn't have from the fans that he's criticizing.
Yeah, it made me actually look up where he's from because I was curious.
Tennessee, he was born.
He is from Cookeville, Tennessee.
Wonder if they have basements there.
I'm saying the fact that they don't have basements in Florida is the least important part of this.
But it's funny
except that it's not. It's exactly right. Except that it actually matters because it says it illustrates, Bubba, that the people he's taking shots at there know more about this than he does.
Right.
They know more about the part that matters. Look, Bubba, I'm not sure. Were you with us when we did the wedding?
No.
When the Mike and Mike had the wedding? So Jason and Catherine, God bless them, got married on our show. They won a contest, and we had this big promotion, Mike and Mike Marriage Madness, I think it was called. I don't remember what year it was now. It's a very long time ago. And the different crazy sports fans who were getting married all competed in this competition. And the winners got to get married live on the ESPN campus on our show. And it was really a magnificent promotion, of which Mike and I contributed the least. The whole team did an unbelievable job. They really made it wonderful. Anyway, the couple that got married that won it were Jason and Catherine West. And I still hear from them every year on their anniversary. But the point I'm making is that they were crazy University of Florida fans, crazy Florida Gator fans, so much so that for their wedding, which we hosted, they chose for that to be the overwhelming theme. They actually walked, after they were pronounced man and wife, they walked down the aisle together, like doing the Florida clap, whatever that Gator clap thing is that the Florida people do. They walked down the aisle doing that. So that's who I'm thinking of. These are people to whom this stuff means everything, to whom people like Tim Tebow mean everything. And Billy Napier means nothing to them. Again, I'm not unsympathetic to the level of vitriol that he is probably has to deal with. But I will also add that he doesn't have to deal with it if he chooses not to. I don't know if he does a coach's radio show. Maybe there he hears directly from his fans. But at this point, if I'm him, Bubba, I'm saying I'm not even looking at social media. I don't want to know what people are saying. There is nothing constructive that is going to come from that. And my only message to the fans is, I hear you. You have absolutely every reason to be frustrated, and I will not rest until I get this thing solved. There is nothing more important to me than getting this season turned around, than winning our next game, whatever that might be, and making those fans proud of us. You say that whether you mean it or not. Bubba.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to how much, with the whole basement thing, is how much is Billy Napier just kind of over his skis right now? Because he came from Louisiana. He was in the Sun Belt Conference. He did a great job in the Sun Belt, but it kind of just illustrates how difficult it is to hire head coaches in any sport, but college football specifically. This guy was a great coach in the Sun Belt, but coaching Florida is a different beast. And so whether he doesn't fully understand the history of Florida or obviously where the fans are from and all that, but they had a guy in Dan Mullen who had a couple of good years and then down years in the pandemic. Did it make more sense to stick through it? But in this day and age, it's like, nope, got to move on. Okay, let's hire Napier, bring him in, and it's just not working out. But I will say, if you're looking at their schedule, I mean, they do have the toughest schedule in football right now. Regardless of what he said right now, if they reel off a few more wins, fans aren't going to care what he said. So he can still turn this around. I'm not sure he will, given how hard their schedule is. But if he kind of turns it around right now and reels off 4 straight victories and plays really well, I don't think fans are going to be upset about it.
Do you have your schedule in front of you?
Yeah. I mean,
I know that in November,
yeah,
they play 5 consecutive weeks without a week off against teams that were ranked, at least in the – well, we still have the opening rankings, right? There hasn't been a second one. So
right.
They currently have scheduled, because we put this up on TV a couple of weeks ago, I know they play 5 consecutive ranked opponents in the month of November alone.
Yeah, they finish with Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and then at Florida State.
And for those who don't follow this stuff, like Ole Miss is supposed to be as good as any of them. Maybe not the traditional power that you're associating with Georgia, Texas, but Ole Miss might be as good as any of those teams.
Right.
Who was the other one?
Georgia,
Texas.
Yeah.
Who else?
LSU.
LSU.
Yep.
So
it's not easy by any means.
Easy. This is the most brutal schedule of all
the hardest
time.
schedule for sure.
It is literally the hardest. Or when the season began, it was the hardest schedule in the country. The Florida State game suddenly looks like the one game that they should be able to win, or could be able to win. But who knows if the coach will still be coaching by the time they get to that? Because that's traditionally the last game of their season. Who do they have coming up now? Who do they play in the next 2 weeks?
They have a Samford, so one.
All right, so I mean that
double A.
That's not going to silence any criticism.
They have Texas A&M after that.
Yeah.
Okay, so look, that's not an easy game. We just all watched them play.
Yeah,
Saturday
he might
night
not make
against Notre
it
Dame.
halfway through the season.
So look, I don't call for people's jobs. I don't want him to get fired. I that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is that when you criticize your own fans, it drives me crazy that you don't realize this, but you're actually criticizing the most important people. They're the most important people. The organization, in this case, the university, they pay you. But those fans are the reason they do. Those fans are the reason you are worth however many millions of dollars they're paying you. You know that private school your kids go to? The fans pay for that. All that stuff. And it just drives me nuts that people don't get that. Fans are not expected to be rational. They're not expected to be held accountable. This isn't their job. It's something more important than their job. But they're not expected to behave professionally when being a fan. You are. It's that simple. In an encounter between a fan and a coach, one person is at work and the other person is not. So are there lines that should never be crossed by fans? Obviously. I'm not suggesting anything of the kind, anything of the sort. I'm not suggesting that it isn't horrifying, some of the things that get said on social media. And if anyone should actually ever confront a coach or a player in person, then that person is a trillion times in the wrong. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is your standard run-of-the-mill Gator fan 2967 on Twitter X saying, Billy Napier sucks, we need a new coach. That person is well within his or her rights to say that. They're not working when they do that. And hearing that, reading that, knowing it exists, that's part of your job description. And if you're not willing or able to deal with that, then you have the wrong job. So,
and real quick, one more thing. And I think this is a lot of times how these schools get in this issue. When they fired Dan Mullen, they paid him $12 million buyout. Then they signed Billy Napier 7 years, $51 million. So I mean, obviously Florida's got all the money in the world if they need it, but they signed this 7 years, $51 million. They fire him, they're going to get another guy in there, and then the cycle just keeps going.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's a program. So we look at that and we say their schedule is so hard. That's a fan base that is accustomed to people saying their schedule is hard because they have to play Florida. You know what I mean? Like that they're not supposed to be on the other side of that equation. So I get the frustration.